Welcome to the Tech Show. New setting, looks good, doesn't it? More on that later. So we've got a new bike from White, we've got 3 new forks from Intend, sort of, and we've got a new handlebar from BMW, and we've got lots more about where we are. Okay, our topic today on the Tech Show is all about comfort, because comfort comes across as a dirty word, but one thing that can absolutely ruin your ride is an ill-fitting saddle. So, I mean, how do you get the right saddle? Is that the first point of sorting out your ride?
Yeah, I mean, you can go online and just buy any saddle and see if it works for you.
Okay.
But that probably won't do the job. So I would start with something like a bike fitting.
Okay, because we need to make sure that the saddle's in the right place to start with.
Exactly, yeah.
Right, okay. So in terms of a bike fit, we're looking at all the contact points. We're not looking at just the saddle, we're looking at like bar, stem, I guess, where our hands are, and then are we looking at where our feet are as well?
Yeah. I mean, it also depends on the bike, on the type of bike.
Oh, of course, and sizing.
And everything, yeah, sizing.
Yeah, of course.
You kind of want to be around the right spot to figure out the points themselves. But
okay, so starting point is like size of bike, making sure that's correct, or within a kind of like window of fit. And then I guess I've seen it sort of like, I've seen it more at road shops where there's like this really high-end bike fit like device. Does it have to always be that complex, or can you just get busy with a tape measure? Or?
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't have to be the full-on professional bike fitting. It can also be one of the easier ones. You can find a lot of stuff online.
Okay,
At Ergon, we have a box where everything is included, all the measuring, all the samples,
like a cardboard cutout.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
so you
nice.
can put everything on your bike and it'll introduce you through it. You just read, figure out where you measure, what you have to do, and then you'll have a good starting point.
Okay, perfect.
And you'll be sure you won't sit on the edge of the saddle or...
Okay, because I guess that's the point of like, you can't choose the right saddle unless it's like not in the right place. So,
exactly.
Okay, so we'll put those contact points in the right place. Then we can choose the saddle, and I guess that feels like a kind of rabbit hole that we could fall into in terms of, I know that there's lots of science in terms of how different saddles can fit, but I guess loosely it's kind of an easier process by looking online and selecting where you're riding. But is it a similar process with grips? Because it feels like is it just personal choice, or is there more to it?
No, I mean, it's definitely some personal choice, but before that is the type of bike. I mean, if you ride a mountain bike, a road bike is more bar tape, but
still,
a touring bike or a mountain bike, it's a huge difference. On one bike, you might, want to have a bit more support on your weight with the bigger wing. Whereas on a downhill bike, the wing would probably be in your way. So you want something that moves and gives you a bit of damping when you ride hard downhill. So that's the big thing to consider, and from there on you can, one likes it that way. There's
Okay, so there is sort of like choice of like bike specificity, and also where you're doing and what you're doing, and also what maybe hand size and what your personal preference is. Okay, so we've got saddle sorted, we've got hand sorted. So I've recently migrated from flats, which I've been on for a while, to clips. And I know there's a bit of science behind where my cleat should be in terms of, well, where it is in relation to my foot and that structure. But is it simply kind of like, do I have to get a tape measure out and measure bits, or are there easier tools to use?
Yeah, we got a template, so we got a tool with a grid on it.
Okay.
Specifically for the cleats you're running.
Yep.
So for the SPD, for example, you buy the SPD one, and you can just slightly mount them on your shoe, put the shoes on there, you'll see a grid, and you can perfectly adjust them so they're the same, so you don't ride like this.
Okay,
one knee hurts, the other one.
Yeah.
So you can perfectly line it up, put a sticker on it, next shoe, next cleat, just put it back on. It's the same again, and it'll be the same for all of the years of riding.
Yeah, so not only do you, if you have to replace the cleats on that shoe, but if you move to a different shoe, you know where it is. Okay, so there is sort of like complexity, and there are these little rabbit holes to fall into, but overall, it is quite simple in terms of working on fit, making sure you've got the right saddle, the right grips, and all these sort of contact touch points, because, well, I guess it's so important that they are whilst it's easy to overlook and it's easy to get excited by maybe carbon bars or like a carbon stem, and you might feel the difference, you might be really sensitive and feel it, but if a saddle is uncomfortable or the grips give you blisters, that's going to be the thing that ruins your ride. So I guess we just have to be like mindful and then we can move on.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, if you've got any bike fit tips, let us know in the comments below. News time. Okay, we've got lots of news here, so we'll try and keep it brief and on point. So White have got their third suspension bike. Yeah, I know, third. And this one is really quite interesting. So they already offer the T160 RS, which is £2,999. But now they've got a really interesting one, the T160 S. So what's interesting about it? We've got 160mm fork, we've got 150mm of rear travel, so we've got RockShox suspension parts, aluminium frame, it's got some geometry adjustments, it's got what White call a Shape It link, so you can change from a low to high, and you can also change between 29 or mixed wheel size. 1x12 drivetrain, all the things that you'd expect. Okay, it comes stock with 29er wheels. It's got a nice spec of TRP brakes, Maxxis tyres. I think it's got their own brand dropper as well. Now, this is the interesting bit, all for $1,999. So under £2,000, you've got a really high performance bike. Very interesting. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. From one end of the value spectrum to the other. Now we're looking at German boutique suspension brand, and component brand, Intend. They've got 3 new forks out. They've got the Edge, the Hero, and the Flash, and all 3 get the black line treatment. Essentially, this means that they look black. They've got black anodizing on them, but deeper down, there's more going on, and that means that that anodizing should last longer. It's a tougher finish, so it should work better and last longer. But there's other changes too. So inside the fork, it's got a different air spring. So it's got the Travelizer, which is, a wonderful word, but essentially it's got 30mm of adjustment and you've got 1mm increments. The air spring has also got reduced friction because the way the seals are set up inside, and a smaller, longer negative chamber, but there's no volume spaces. So how the fork works in these 3 different models, it's going to be slightly different too. Pricing from €2,149 up to $2,249, so very much the other end of the value scale. Okay, we're talking about a brand that popped up as an e-bike brand, almost disappeared, but is now back, and now back with normal mountain bikes. So Fridell are back. So it's an Andorran company that launched some really high-tech bikes, and now they've got, some really high-tech looking bikes. So there's 2 different models. They've got an enduro bike and a cross-country or down-country bike. So we'll start with the enduro model first. So we've got 170mm of travel front and rear, 29er only, so no option for mixed wheel size, which is kind of unusual. The bike uses Fridell's twin levity suspension system, which I've got to say sounds really interesting. But from looking at it, and maybe I'm wrong, but it looks like it's essentially a single pivot with a link-activated shock. Clever linkage with some changes on there. It's got down-tube storage, which we'd expect, integrated fidlock, bottle mount, integrated chain guide, headset cable routing, controversial. Geometry is 64-degree head angle and a 77.5 seat tube angle, and there's 3 sizes, a small, medium, large, and XL. And there's 2 models, so there's kind of like a really high-end spec and a kind of even higher-end spec. So there's the Halo model of the Cyron, which is €6,999, and then there's the Diode model, this is the top-end one, which is €8,999. Okay, so this Cygnus is the cross-country and down-country model, full carbon frame, as the other bike, 120mm of travel, designed around a 120 or 130mm fork, again 29er only front and rear, and it's a similar single pivot setup, so interesting on a down-country bike. There's 2 builds, again a high-end build and a low-end, and head angle of 67 degrees, seat angle of 75 degrees, and again, just 3 sizes, so this small, medium, the large, and XL. 2 builds, pricing is essentially same, so almost €7,000 and almost €9,000. It's awesome to see another brand stepping in. What are your thoughts on them? Let us know in the comments below. P&W have relaunched their range bar. This is the 4th generation version of their aluminium handlebar. And you might be like, oh, aluminium handlebar. We've got loads of those. But this one has been redesigned nicely. So it's got anti-fatigue properties and geometry changes to make it even more comfortable and mimic, allegedly, some of their carbon bars as well. So it should be very smooth. Interesting geometry. So we've got 10-degree back sweep and 5-degree up sweep. We've got a range of rises on it. And interesting, they've now added a 50mm rise. So those taller bars are happening, well, everywhere. It's also available in 31.8 and 35mm diameters. So that's really interesting. Quite a few brands have only got one size, whereas P&W have got you covered there. Lots and lots of colour options too, which is great if you like matchy-matchy, and prices from £67, which is pretty reasonable. Okay, stuff that we've seen on the internet. I guess first to mention is Death Grip 2, which is Brendon's latest movie. So lots of rad action. And on the movie front, there's another movie which I feel like carries a lot more weight and is a bit more poignant. It's by Rider Resilience, which is a charity founded by Niels Amelix. And it talks all about the importance of cycling, and not necessarily in terms of tech and hyper weight and super lightweight that. It's more about how incredible cycling can be for you in a healing and just brilliance of cycling. Finally, a little tech story. Neat Bicycles, 16-year-old designers developed this awesome high pivot, belt drive, pinion gearbox bike that he's making himself. It is brilliant. Be really interesting to see where that goes. Quiz time. I know, for some people, it's probably the favourite part of the show. For me, it is. Okay, last week we asked you, what was the first ever RockShox suspension fork called, and what year did it come out? And, well, actually, it was quite controversial. I mean, the fork was the RS1, and it depends on who you chat to. Was it 1990? Was it 1991? Personally, I think it was 1989, but there was some controversy, so there's quite a few winners who are on screen. People who said the RS1 in 1989 are on screen now, so yeah, very good. And this week's competition, it's good actually. So we're here at Ergon, but what major bike brand is just across the river? Let us know. Top mod time. Very exciting. We've got Sam on the Isle of Man, where he's repainted his Santa Cruz Hightower LT CC. Personally, I think the original colour was quite nice, but Sam really likes Lamborghini Pearl Yellow, so he's repainted his bike all by himself to do it. Very impressive. Next up, we've got Anthony in Bedford, who's, well, he's doing his own dream builds. When he started up with a frame and then he's kind of custom built it himself, which is a wonderful thing. If you haven't done it, you should do it. So it's a Transition Sentinel with boxers. Interesting choice. It's got 12 speed, so it's kind of a park Juro bike. But yeah, let us know in the comments which one you prefer. I think it's my favourite section of the show, and that's comments, because getting involved in the chat, I do it, you do it, it's wonderful, and it is all part of this community that we hear on GMBN Tech. So if you haven't joined in the comments, do. It's really fun. And first we've got Joel, who says he loves the glasses over the blindfold. This was me blind testing. I did say blind tasting, I think, before, but blind testing Rocks versus FoxShox. There you go, that's the real big difference. Laurentus Trias says, people who stick with one brand, or even worse, just the two major players, don't know what they're missing. It's a jungle out there. And I'd agree with you there. There are so many brands doing some really interesting things and slightly different. And whilst lots of them do feel similar, there is some differences out there that might be perfect for you. Right, Tired and Cranky, he says brakes. He's got trick stuff up front. He's got a lefty suspension fork, he's got a Fox rear shock, and he's got Ingrid and Garbunk gears. Very nice setup. If you've not shared your bike with us on the uploader, please do, because that sounds great. Rotty has taken Martin's advice and played this blind tasting in his garage. He guessed every single component correctly. Well done. Obviously, don't actually blind taste them because you might damage your teeth. Just blind test them. Initial Photography has said £300 for some pedals with most of the pedal missing. I'm confused, or they've confused Black Friday with April the 1st. These are the pedals that we'd seen. I think they're actually in production. There's two different versions. Essentially, it's kind of like, imagine a horseshoe shape just attached to your crank. Very interesting. Not sure what they'll actually be like. Yeah. Interesting. And finally, mildly worrying, this one is from Ty Trips, and he says that he uses coconut oil in his brakes. Interesting. Maybe it's sort of like more, yeah, I've got no idea where to go from there. So yeah, be safe when you're bleeding your brakes. Maybe don't use coconut oil. Finally, what are we looking forward to this week? Well, obviously, lots of enjoyable tech on GMBN Tech. We've got how to wash your mountain bike, and we've got the most important tech releases of 2024. So yeah, if you need to clean your bike, you can watch. And if you want to know what the most important releases are, you should watch. But make sure you get involved in the chat. Let us know your thoughts about bike fit and what you've learned from this video. Let us know.